Frank Wu is the chairman of the Committee of 100, an organization focusing on the Chinese American community and U.S.-China relations. He's also a distinguished professor at the University of California, Hastings College of Law. He's joining us now from San Francisco. Let's start with the lasting impact of the Chinese Exclusion Act. Talk to me about the human cost of this. Obviously, it tore families apart. Some family members already here, the U.S. stayed, but their loved ones were barred from coming and staying behind as a result.
That's right. There were families that were separated for 20 years. So fathers didn't see their own children until the children had grown up. These were families that were resilient, and they were seeking what everyone else was seeking, the opportunity here in San Francisco, the Gold Mountain. But Chinese were regarded as an economic threat. They were thought of as competing too successfully. The irony is that the backlash against Chinese was not motivated by a sense that they were inferior. It was the sense that they were superior, that they would do better than whites, many of whom themselves also were foreigners. That's what led to the Exclusion Act.
And I saw your Google talk. You talk a lot about this model minority myth that the Chinese community has a real positive impact on American society. You just talked about it there. That brings both respect and resentment. Talk to us a little bit more about that.
That's right. It sounds positive, right? This idea that people of Asian descent, especially Chinese, are smart and hardworking, good at math and science. But hidden within that is backlash, the sense that maybe the Chinese are unfair competition. What is it to be hardworking? It's to be a little too hardworking. To be good with numbers is to be good with only numbers. So we have to be very careful about these racial stereotypes. Contained there is the echo of what was said before 1882. The Chinese will outwork the white laborers building the Transcontinental Railroad, for example.
The Exclusion Act, internment camps, really black stains on U.S. history. And yet you wrote an interesting piece in the Huffington Post that was titled "Why Asian Americans Don't Attract Sympathy." We don't hear people talking about it. In fact, Ted Gong's saying that, people aren't even drawing the parallels. Why is that?
Well, we're forgetful. Many Americans, including Asian Americans themselves, and there are now sixth-generation Californians of Asian descent, they've forgotten. They've put this behind themselves. But it's because of the stereotype. The idea is Asian Americans are so successful. So people sometimes say, well, you're doing better here than you would be in your homeland, as if we weren't real Americans. Or they figure, you're all rich anyway. What do you have to complain about? So there's a danger. This image of super success leads people to be angry and resentful on a racial basis. And then when they take it out on Asian Americans, they deny that anything's wrong because, after all, you sort of deserve what you get if everyone sees you as an overachiever. We're a culture that celebrates the underdog.
What about the climate today? How do you see it?
There are some disturbing sentiments. This same notion that Asians are not real Americans, can't ever assimilate, are perpetual foreigners, and are an economic threat. The real risk here is that we'll forget about bridge building, the Golden Gate Bridge in the background. That's a metaphor about bringing together East and West, and Asian Americans, Chinese Americans especially. That's what we try to do. We blend the U.S. and China. We're Americans, and we're Chinese too. That should be celebrated, not condemned.
Frank Wu, thanks so much for joining us from San Francisco, your analysis.